right, Steph, thank you. Calling it the fight of our generation and admitting a second wave is underway in parts of Canada. Justin Trudeau addressing the nation to outline the government's plan to help.
While we're dealing with this pandemic, I don't want you or your parent or your friend to take on debt that your government can better shoulder. So yes, in the short term, we'll keep investing. But beyond the emergency, as we start to build back better, we must do that in a fiscally and sustainable way. Investing for our recovery must be done responsibly.
His 15-minute speech emphasizing the points of the earlier throne speech with billions in spending. It includes extending the wage care subsidy until next summer and a pledge to fight COVID with an improved system for testing. But the PM says until COVID is brought under control, other promises like a national plan for childcare and pharmacare cannot fully move ahead. The opposition says Liberals' inaction finally catching up.
In March, the Prime Minister promised that rapid testing for Canadians would be his top priority. Half a year and $500 billion later, Canadian families are lined up for hours for tests because the Prime Minister failed to deliver.
With healthcare, we knew that our healthcare system wasn't there for people when they need it. And we needed to do better with universal pharmacare and dental care. Well, Justin Trudeau just promised again to do it, but he's had 6 years to deliver something and has not done it.
Both the Conservatives and the Bloc are not likely to support the plan. The NDP says it wants more help for those who have lost their job during the pandemic. If all three parties reject the plan, the minority Liberals could topple, forcing an election. Justin Trudeau also saying because of the spike in cases, he is warning against large Thanksgiving gatherings. But if we act now and get those numbers down, Christmas may be a different story. Parliament resumes all normal operations today for the first time in 6 months. Now, the actual throne speech was delivered by the Governor General earlier on in the afternoon, promising a positive outlook post-pandemic.
This is an ambitious plan for an unprecedented reality. The course of events will determine what needs to be done when.
The speech also promised help for businesses and hard-hit sectors of the pandemic like travel, tourism, and hospitality. Reaction was quick to come in. Premier Doug Ford saying today the federal government missed a critical opportunity to commit to a desperately needed increase to the Canada Health Transfer. I will continue to work alongside my provincial counterparts to advocate that the federal government invest its fair share in health care. Coming up here in about 20 minutes' time, we're going to be hearing from political strategist Omar Khan on the hits and misses from yesterday's speech. Meantime, Premier Ford is slamming Health Canada for holding back on the approval of a rapid COVID-19 test. Ford urging the organization to speed up their process and help shorten long lines like these ones that we've been seeing at various testing centers. Today, he is expected to roll out more details of his fall pandemic plan relating to spending on testing as well as case and contact management. And this comes as Public Health Ontario reporting a delay to issuing COVID-19 testing results, and this is all due to a system outage. And as you heard from the top of the show, the City of Toronto now canceling all major events for the rest of the year to curb the spread of COVID.
What we're trying to do is achieve a regime here that respects all of the advice we get from Dr. Davila and her team and the province and everywhere else, but at the same time allow a degree of latitude that is quite different than what we had when we were in the absolute lockdown period. But a lot of that depends on people listening to what the doctor has said and following that advice.
Okay, so what does that include? The Santa Claus Parade, which organizers are hoping to make virtual instead. Other events called off: the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, Nuit Blanche, the Cavalcade of Lights, and New Year's Eve celebrations at Nathan Phillips Square. The city is also considering new restrictions like possible early closures for bars and restaurants. We're going to break down all of these details. Mayor John Tory will be joining me live here coming up at 7:30. Well, a ruling in Louisville, Kentucky, sparking outrage in communities right across the U.S. A grand jury deciding not to lay charges in the fatal police shooting of Breonna Taylor. And the demonstrations began right after the announcement. They started as peaceful, but anger grew. Protests turned violent. 2 police officers were shot in Kentucky. They are expected to survive. 1 person has been arrested. Now, the grand jury ruled that 2 white police officers would not face charges in the death of Taylor, a black medical worker shot in her apartment when police carried out a warrant last March. A 3rd officer is charged with endangering her neighbors. Civil rights activists calling the decision a miscarriage of justice. Meanwhile, President Trump issuing that message on Twitter, which you saw there, saying that he was praying for the 2 officers and that the federal government was willing to help if needed in Kentucky. We are going to continue to follow this story here throughout the morning and coming days on BT.